One missing flag, that's all it takes for an attacker to steal every user session in your product. Today we are building a complete cookie-based authentication system in NestJS, including login, logout, guards, Redis, sessions, the whole stack. But first, I will show you exactly how attacker exploit the weak cookies, so you understand why we configure them this way. Most NestJS tutorials will teach JWT wrong. They store token in the local storage. That's XSS heaven. Attackers can steal the token and can get everything done. By the end of this video, you will have a production ready authentication code where authentication is done using cookies. We are doing authentications and returning the secure cookies at the browser, and browser is sending those cookies back to the APIs, and now APIs are validating the cookies and generating the user session. Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video we are going to talk about cookie based authentication. So in the last module, we talked about session-based authentication. This video, it's primarily will be based on session-based authentication. So we are talking about three different things: session-based, cookie-based, and token-based. So first, we will try to understand what are cookies, right? Cookies are small text information which are stored, which are sent by the server and stored at the browser. And what all information we store in the inside of cookies, maybe auth token, preference, session ID, user ID, or something like that. What are the type of cookies? Like you can say session cookies, third-party cookies, secure HTTP only cookies, persistent cookies, which has expiration of time, right? So cookie-based authentication is widely popular. What happens is you log into some system, server sends you the cookies, which browser manages it, right? And then in subsequent request, you are sending the same cookies back to the server. So server can identify, okay, this is the cookie sent by me, and now it is coming back from the client. So server can validate the cookies, okay, if those cookies are valid and representing a user, I should allow you to log in. So cookies are some simple plain information like this, which contains the query parameter like session ID, and these are the attributes, right? Okay, cookies are HTTP only and secure. So there are many ways in which we have to make our cookies secure so that nobody can read the cookies throughout the network traffic. So we need to make it HTTP only. So that should not be accessible by JavaScript at a client side. Secure, that means that cookies should be sent over HTTPS. Same site, that means the same cookies can be exchanged between the same domain. Not like, okay, if I steal the cookies, I cannot use it on my own domain. So these CSRF attacks and all will be gone, right? So in real world application, if we try to think about the cookies, how it works, we have a client, we have a server. User logs in with the username password, server sends us the cookies. Now that cookie can be anything. That cookies data can be a simple JWT token, it can be a session ID, it can be user ID, it can be a session ID which we are storing in the Redis, right? So that will be the cookies. Information can be anything inside the cookies. It can be a token, it can be a session ID. The another thing is, once you receive the cookies, you will be sending the cookies back to the server. So this is how the session is exchanged between client and the server. So we have already seen session-based authentication. There the client was sending the session in form of cookies only. If you remember the last module where we were using session-based authentication, there also the information exchange was happening through cookies only. Okay, after that we will talk about the token based authentication. So that we will be sending through headers. So between client and server, you can send information either in the cookies, in the query parameter, in the request body. But these authentication information we always send either through cookies or either through headers like X API key, X token, authorization header. So authentication information, token, cookie, session ID, we send through the either cookies or either through authorization header. So mainly in token based authentication, we send the token through authorization header. But in cookies based authentication, whatever the authentication mode, either we use token based, so that token also will be sent through cookies. So that's the major difference between cookie based and the token based. In token, we don't use cookies at all. We just send a token always in the authorization header. But in cookies based authentication, either you use a token based authentication or anything. The most important part is we will be using cookies for exchanging the data. Now that cookie can be representing some session ID, user ID, auth ID, or token also, the plain JWT token. So people sometimes get confused. when they see the JWT token coming inside a cookies, yes, you can send it. The cookies can have anything, even you can send a JWT token, because it's only about how we exchange the information, right? Either you send a token in the JSON response and send it in the authorization header. You can send the token in the cookies also. Then you decode it while sending it back to the server. So let's dive in the cookies based authentication. First, we will try to set up application. Then this is the simple setup you are trying to create. Okay, so this is the plain and simple structure how cookies works. This is your browser. You see the login screen. You enter the username password. It sends the data to the post authenticate or login post API. Server validate username password. Server sends the HTTP status 200 with the cookies. So this cookie has a session information. It can be session ID, it can be token, it can be user ID. And now when you are sending another request like get API user, what it will do is server will validate the session and you don't need to explicitly do anything. Once you send the cookies to the browser will automatically attach these cookies with the API request you are sending to the same domain. Okay, you don't need to explicitly add the cookies. And now server will validate the cookies. Okay, it represents the valid user. It sends the information back to the client. So this is the plain and simple structure how cookies works. Cookies data can be anything, can be token, session ID, user ID, auth ID, email ID. It's just a way of identifying that we have a valid identifier coming back with the protected private request. So now cookies are something which we are exchanging between client and server, right? So we also need to think about their security. Are they secure enough? Nobody's going to steal or all those things. So this is how we can secure our cookies. Cookies are nothing but a secure data. You should always take care of the security. So when you are setting cookies, make sure HTTP only is true. That means it cannot be read by the browser. Browser cannot interpret, manipulate or read it. It should be secure. Same site, that means whatever the domain you set, only that with that site this is available. And also set an expiry so that once the cookies are expired, they cannot be used, they cannot be sent to the server again. So HTTP only prevent XSS attack, secure, ensure that it is used only on HTTPS, same site. It restricts the cross-site sending of the same cookies. Path, I mean, you can also specify the particular path, but it sends the cookies to all the API calls which are being sent to the entire app. Maximum age or expires, how long the cookies stays on the browser. So that's good, right? And how it works in the code, you can just send cookies like this, response.cookies, like response.send, response.json we do in Express, response.cookies. And these are the cookies attribute: HTTP only, secure true, same site, maximum age and path. In development, you can just set a secure false, but these are like very important things. Common security mistake, you forgot to add HTTP only, secure flag, same site. So to make your cookies most secure in production application, then you need to set all those things: HTTP only true, secure true, same site, either strict or flexible, maximum age, the expiry of the cookies on the browser. This is how you can make your cookies ultra secure. Now let's talk about the basic setup of the NestJS application to get started with the whole authentication using cookies, where we will be exchanging the JWT token from the client to server. We are using cookie based authentication where we are exchanging the data in form of JWT token. Okay, so let's try to set up the basic app. What we are going to do is we are going to create a simple NestJS application for this whole demo. I hope you already know how to just bootstrap a CLI. We have a Nest CLI. With the help of that, we can create a basic application. We are using simple Nest CLI, and with the Nest CLI, we can create a simple basic application. So I already have created that basic setup. Let's take a look. So this is our repository, right? I created this NestJS app setup. In source, I have a code domain shared. I'm going to have two different modules, user module and auth module, because we are going to add authentication. We are going to use a different auth strategies. And this is the user module to create like, okay, user registration. And then once user logs in, user should be able to access his own information. Shared module. This is our main module. I will try to add all the required things, like we will need a database, TypeORM, entities, tiny little Docker setup we already have, I think. Yes, Docker utils. What I will do is I will copy the Docker compose file. We already have Docker compose file. So that will, when I do the Docker compose, what will happen is it creates the container for me. I need to make sure the Docker is up and running. Let's spin up the Docker through the Docker desktop. I can just do Docker compose up. Docker is still coming up, so it will give me an error. Let's wait for some time. And once the Docker container is up and running, I will have a database up and running for me. This is the database and Redis. I mean, Redis I don't need, but this is like a Docker compose file. And this is my basic setup, right? This is my simple controller, module, root module. This is my service, main.ts main module. I don't need to explain because in the last video, we have already covered all those things. And here my package JSON where I have all the dependencies needed. I think we already have a Postgres added already there. Otherwise I will add it. I need some passport module for the login strategy. And these are the basic setup. NestJS setup for cookies based auth. These are the two projects we have. Okay, let's start working on this one. Now we can start setting up the basic NestJS application because we are building a simple authentication platform where we are going to use cookie based authentication. So how to get started? Very simple. We will be using NestCLI, simple NestCLI, because we have already covered on NestJS application in the last video. We will follow the same strategy, NestCLI, and we can just create a simple new project. Okay, that project will have this basic things like controller, service, main.ts, and a basic bare bones structure. And then we will create a required modules, providers, controllers, middlewares, exception filters, pipes. I mean, when we are building authentication, I think we will be covering almost all those things. At least the interceptors, pipes, middlewares, modules, providers, controllers, services, DAO, database modules, and all sort of things. So let's take a look on our basic setup. So this is our NestJS application setup, right? What it contains: controller, modules, and service. And this is the main.ts. This is the main module. This is the controller. And inside domain, we will be creating a couple of folders like auth module and a user module, because we are building authentication APIs and the user APIs. User for sign up and accessing the protected API data, authentication for the login, logout, all sort of things. We will be using the core stuff like a middleware, pipes, interceptors, filters, auth guards. All these are core of the NestJS. Shared module, if you want to share something across auth and a user, maybe you can split that into a shared service. So overall, we need to do all these things. You can install npm. I mean, you can either use pnpm or npm. These are the two different package managers. I added a pnpm, add NestCLI globally, then nest new auth app. You go inside this and you will find a folder structure, something like this. So you can have an authentication module, a user management module, configuration files. Main.ts will be the entry point, app module will be the root module, auth and the users will be the modules, right? You can also use NestCLI to generate controllers, modules, services like nest generate module, nest generate controller, nest generate service. And this is the tsconfig file because we are writing a TypeScript code. So this is like a bare bones structure of how things should work in our NestJS application. And now we will start adding things. But we want to have authentication mechanism through cookies, where cookies will be exchanging the data of a access token from the client to the server. Hi everyone, so now we have everything set up. Here I can see my project, NestJS application, which contains the controller, module, services. Okay, I have the Docker containers up and running. You can see there are two containers. One is Redis and one is the database. Database is clean. We just bootstrap the clean database without any tables. So we should be able to bootstrap the database with some tables using TypeORM. Okay, so what we will do is let's take a look on to some basic setup. Okay, how we are going to return the cookies using Simple Express app, right? That will also tell us how to deal with the cookies. So let's consider that you are writing a Simple Express Node.js application, and here we are doing mock implementation, how to return the cookies. Okay, so I installed Express, and here I just wrote a simple logic app login, right? Where I'm just doing a mock implementation. So whenever authentication is done, okay, username password is correct, I'm returning response.cookies. So this is how I'm sending cookies to the client. HTTP only true, secure true for production, and there is some expiry set. And when the request is coming to the server with the private endpoint, like this is the protected API, then you will get a cookies like this request.cookies.token. So here you set the cookies in the response from the first API, from the login API. Now you are accessing your own profile information after you successfully logged in. So you are accessing cookies using request.cookies.token. If you are passing token, you will be authenticated. Otherwise, you are passing token. I will validate you with the token with the same secret which I have, and I will say welcome user, right? And once you do the logout, you can just clear out the cookies, response.clear cookies. So it will wipe out all the cookies sent by server to the client. So this is how you will make the cookies secure. This is like a bare bone minimum setup of doing this thing. We will also be doing the same thing in the NestJS. Just like we will introduce database, passport strategy, JSON web token, local strategy, all those concepts we will just add with the NestJS. But there also we will be doing the same thing. We will generate a token once the username password is correct in the database. We will return a cookies, and the same cookies we will be able to access in the middleware to check, okay, you are passing token is valid, we decoded it represents a correct user, and you will be allowed to access the resources. And on the logout, you can clear the cookies and send the response back. So let's try to implement this logic in the NestJS with all the required building blocks. Okay, so we need to understand what is cookies and what is session-based authentication and how they're different from each other. So we are talking about both of these. Session we have already covered. Cookies also we have covered, right? So what is the cookies? Cookies are like small data stored at the client side on the browser, sent by server. Sessions are server side only, and we are storing the user data. Cookies are sent by server, stored on the browser, and server sessions are stored inside a server's memory, and you need to have a cache like Redis. Use case when you want to store a session ID or tokens in the cookies. Here in the sessions we store the actual user information. So this is just a comparison I'm showing, like what is cookies and what is session based authentication. So in cookie based authentication, server sends the cookies data to the client, okay, that can contain a session ID, token. Client stores it and sends it back with every request. This is the browser behavior, that cookies are persisted on same domain, and they send the cookies back to the server. Server identify, validate. These are very easy to set up, works with every backend, and can be stateless with the token. Cons, you need to take care of the security of the cookies, that no third-party application should be able to access your cookies. Session-based authentication, it creates a session at the server side, and you need to store that session using some kind of a persistent mode like Redis database or something. Client sends the session ID in form of cookies only. Indirectly this is also using cookies. server send a session that is managed through cookies, and in the consecutive request you are going to send the cookies back to server, where server will validate your session. So scenarios, where should we use what, right? So when you are using just a single page application, you can just use session based authentication. Mobile application, then you can use a token based authentication, or a single page with the backend, then you can also use cookie based with the session ID or token, right? So these are like very much differences. Further, we will also talk about plain token based authentication. That is also has its own case when you want to have a stateless authentication. That server sends the token, now client receives the token, now the token is valid till the expiry of the token, right? So in the next request you will be sending the token in the authorization header, and that token is valid till the expiry of that token. So if somebody copies the token, he can access your APIs. So let's talk about the actual implementation now. Our application is already up and running. You can see I just did npm run start, and our application is running on port 3000, right? Now what we are going to build, let's little bit talk about it. We are going to build a simple login request. So we'll write a controller, auth module, auth controller, auth service, where we will validate the user credentials. If user is valid, we will send a token, okay, JWT token with the payload, something like user ID and a username, sends with the JWT using response.set cookies, right? And those cookies are HTTP only. That means the client cannot access them, manipulate them. Client stores the cookies in the client side cookies, and then on the consecutive request like profile, post data, we will be writing a middleware that will extract the cookies from request.cookies.auth token. Okay, once you get the cookies like auth token, you will validate the JWT token expiration, attach and decode the request user object to the user object to the request. So we will be implementing AuthGuard, local strategy, JSON web token. We will be using the passport module. Passport provide all those features, and whenever you do logout, we will return cookies empty, or you can just clear out all the cookies from the server side, set the expiry 0. That means all the cookies will be reset, and when they will be sent to the server, they already expired. Security considerations will be using the HTTP only. Cookies are secure for production. Token will have an expiry, okay, and we are going to just write auth controller, auth module, auth service, and this JWT strategies like JWT AuthGuard, JWT strategy, and we are going to write a user controller because we will also want user to sign up to our system so that later he can log in. Okay, so let's get started. Hi everyone and welcome back. So we are talking about cookie based authentication, and we are doing the code setup. So there will be few things which will still be the same, like the database. Database we can copy from the existing session based authentication. If you look at the database code, what it contains, it is just a module which is initializing the Postgres database connection, right? This is the root module, and how to initialize it. It is just using the same asynchronous initialization of a TypeORM module, where you are passing the configuration options, which contains the database URL, which looks something like this. Type is Postgres and SSL. Okay, so what I will do is I will copy and paste this thing. Okay, what it is, it contains the database configuration, and how to initialize it. In the main.ts, we will initialize it. So inside app module, we are doing db module.forroot and passing all the entities. Same thing we will do. db module.forroot. Now I will copy this code in the source app module. Okay, inside import, because this is the external module we are importing. db module we can import. User entity we are going to create. So once we have the entities, we will pass it here. So what this db module is doing, db module is actually providing us the database connection. We are calling db module.forroot for initializing the connection, which is calling forroot async. We are passing config module, config module is nothing but providing the database connection URL. So we also need to have a config service somewhere set up. So let's go to this project, how we were managing the config, that we can copy from here. So app module, so we are using just a simple NestJS config module. For root, what it is doing is it is capturing everything from the from the .env file and giving us everything inside a config service. So app module, let's see, do we have a config module? We can import it. Yes. And I will try to import things which are needed here, like TypeORM, Postgres, NestJS, TypeORM, all these modules. I have fixed the dependencies, and now you can see I can do npm run build. Package.json error. Let's see what it is. What is error here? I don't see there is any error. Let's see the project again. Okay, I'm not in the right directory. Sorry for that. I need to go to the NestJS setup, npm run build. So now I'm in the right directory and it is working fine. So what I did, config module.for root, db module. So db module is same thing. It is initializing asynchronously our TypeORM module. It needs env file to get the database URL. And we already have a Postgres running. So what I will do is I will copy both these files. So what this env contains, the database URL. We don't need Redis. We don't need session, but we need database something like this. So we need to check our database is running on this port or not. Docker compose override file and 5433. Okay, things looks fine. I can even start this application. npm run start will start this application. Let's see what we get. Yes. And my application is started. Config module initialized, TypeORM module initialized. That means our database module setup is correct. I mean, this is what I copied, and every project will need this config database module because I'm using TypeORM. Here you can change the type to Postgres, MySQL, and initialize the different type of connections. I mean, here for root, here you can check, okay, database type is Postgres, return this kind of a configuration. Here we are passing all the entities, synchronization true. That means whenever TypeORM starts, it synchronizes the entities into the database tables. Logging true false, it will show you the SQL on the console. SSL is disabled for the development. So this is a simple database setup. Now we will start adding the more libraries. Currently our project contains not many things. I just added a couple of things like NestJS, TypeORM, Prisma we don't need because Postgres we need, Redis we don't need. I will remove those things which we don't need. Passport and passport strategies we need, so I'm just keeping that dependency. NestJS, GWT, passport, TypeORM, all these configurations we have. So let's start adding the user module and the auth module with the controller and their services. So now we have database setup. Now we just need to do what? Inside domain, you can start creating user entity, pass the reference of user entity here, so it will bootstrap that. So let's try to do one simple thing. We will try to copy the user entities from here and see the magic. So here I had a user entity. So let's copy this user entity here and try to pass the reference. So just try to show you how all these things are connected. So I will import this thing and I will start the application again. And you can see it will try to synchronize the user table. You can see user table doesn't exist earlier. Now it sees the okay, user entity has been added. I need to load this. So it has created this table. You can see the SQL create user default with these attributes. Okay, we'll try to define our user table in nicer way. So let's work on that. Hi everyone, so let's add our user entity all required attributes. It's not like just we need to store the email and password. There are a couple of more attributes which we are storing. So all these things we are importing from the user entity, and now we will add, okay, this is entity. So there is a syntax which we follow to create entities in the TypeORM. So the ID is auto generated column, then all these columns. So we are specifying type, length, select, unique. Email should be unique, varchar, length is minimum. I mean, you can just, you do not specify the length, then it will take more. Password, last name, first name, email, password, reset password, we can store the address. So all these attributes we are storing inside a user entity. And when I save this and when I start our application, so TypeORM will check, okay, you have updated the entities. So it will update the database table. So we have a refresh token, first name, name, all these respective attributes added here. So this is our user entity, and now what we will do is we'll go to the terminal and here I will just do npm run start. So I have updated a new entity. It should be able to load it, and here you can see it has updated things that we can see in the query. Table schema, and it should have some update query somewhere. Let me just see, because it has loaded the TypeORM app module, domain module.for root. We will also check the database. So we are using Postgres. You can just use the Postgres tool or Postgres admin to see the table structure of our database. So copy our connection URL, which is this, right? Copy this, and you can use this connection URL to connect to Postgres. So this is the user entity inside a user module. Let me fix this thing. What's the name? It's user entity. Let's replace it. Now I will start the application again. Okay, it did like create table users, and we can check this here. Okay, the table name is different. That's the typo. Earlier the table was user, so we can just delete this table. We can just use users table, and this is the structure of this particular table. We are storing refresh token, first name, last name, email, password, right? It just I changed the entity name, right? Earlier it was user, now it is users. So you see the power of TypeORM. It checks, okay, you have a new table, I will create a new one. Or if you are adding a new column, let's say first name, last name, or you can say family name or something like. I will start the application again. It checks, okay, you have added a new column. So you can see it has added alter table users add family name. So this is how TypeORM works, and all the relationships one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. Currently we have only one table to play with. This is the user entity. Now what we will do is we will write a user controller which will allow us to create users. Hi everyone, so let's work on the user controller here. I will do user.controller. What we are going to do in the user controller, just like let's say we should allow user to onboard. We should be storing the password in the bcrypt form. It's just like open sign up, where user enter the email, password, and the first name. User should be able to enter in our system. So controller is simple. We have already written the controller code many times. It is just a simple, you import all the required things and then write the controller methods by using the basic syntax. Here we define all the routes. We first importing all the things from the NestJS common. These are some Swagger dependencies which makes our controller API methods exposed on the Swagger docs. API bearer auth, API header, API OK response, OK, API internal server response. These are just to add the required messages on top of your each and every APIs. So your APIs feels good, right? All these guards and all we will create, because once user logs in, user should try to access his own profile. There we need all these guards, strategies and all. These are the details which we are going to define. And with user controller, we also need to define a user service, because controller will talk to user service, and user entity we already have. These are a couple of constant, like, okay, every API need to respond with a status code 200, internal server error, another bad request. So these are just a constant message. And this is authorization. Not every message needs authorization header, only the private APIs, and this is the validation pipe. And the controller is users. Now I'm writing user controller. Here you can inject a user service, because user service will have a methods to save the user, validate the user. Now we'll just HTTP status code created, which is 201, type user sign up response DTO. These are the custom Swagger methods, which will expose these things on the Swagger docs. Okay. What user created successfully. This is for user creation. What is a API consume? This is the HTTP post. Create user. We will pass things inside a body. Okay. And here we are just creating a simple user. Okay. This dot service dot create. So we will just talk about what we are going to add inside a user service, because these things I have written many times, so I'm not duplicating the same syntax here. User entity, user controller. Now further you can add multiple methods. Okay, this is post. What I can do is HTTP status code dot OK. This is user updated or user fetched. This should be the get call. Okay. API OK response, because we are not creating here anything. Once you logged in, you should be able to pass the param. So here it should be param. That we will change. Okay. Fetch user something like this, and we'll just pass param. Okay, and this will be the get, and we will try to populate your user ID inside a session, so you don't need to do okay get user by ID. When you say get, it will give your own session, I mean own user information, because there will be the APIs. What they will do is they will give us the required session information. Based on that, we should be able to fetch your profile. So we will be adding all these type of guards that I will do later. But okay, authentication token guard, role guard, that even a particular role is allowed. So these are the things which you will add, because this is the private API. Who should be allowed to read the user information? Either I myself or a particular system administrator. And auth access token guard, role guard, they will just help me, so that only the protected user who has the access token should be able to read it. So we will talk about these things little later. I'm just commenting these things out for now. But this is just a simple API. Currently it's a public API, but when you add these guards, it will become private API. So this is to get a user, your own user. There can be a user, another API, okay, give me all the users. So let's create another route. This profile is to give you your own profile. Okay. Then we can have another route which says, okay, give me all the users from the system, and only system administrator is allowed to do that. So this is where the role guard comes into picture. Okay. If you are a system administrator, on HTTP GET, you should be allowed to fetch all the users. But if you're not a system administrator, I mean, I don't need a role guard here. I just need activation guard, access token guard. That means you should be passing the authorization header. You should be able to fetch your own profile. Okay. So these kind of logics we will write, and then we will add a user service. In user service, we will just create user. inside our platform. Hi everyone. So the next thing we are doing is creating a user service. User service should be able to provide us all the different operations like create user, update user, delete user, fetch user, search user. All those things will be available in the user service. So this is our user module, the root module. And here, because user module depends on the user entity, so we need to tell that, okay, this module can access the user repository. But for that, you need to initialize it like this: TypeORM module.forFeature user entity. Now, user service can access user repository. Okay, this is a user service which will have all the methods. Okay, create user for sign up, and I created a simple DTO, user sign up DTO, which contains, okay, the email, first name, last name, and the password, because that is the basic things we need for user to sign up. So for that, we are writing injectable class user service, right? We will inject the user repository. So here, this is how you will inject the user repository, because we need a user service. Inside user service, we want to access the user repository, which will help us to create, update, delete user sign up DTO. And here we will try to create a user repository first dot create. Now we will set all the parameters on the user entity. So we are checking if there is an existing user with the same email. Yes. Then we just say conflict exception, that email already exists, you cannot create new one. Otherwise, we will just create a bcrypt version of the password using hash password. This is the method which we will define. We'll get a hash, and this is the same entity, user entity, user input, and we are overriding password, first name, last name. We are just converting them to the lower case if the user is entering the uppercase. And then what we will do inside the try catch, we can just say user entity dot save, user report dot save user entity, and we can just log everything. So here we are creating a hash version of the bcrypt password, bcrypt dot hash, and before saving the password, we are just overriding the password of the bcrypt version. And here inside try catch, you can improve it like error instance of conflict exception, then throw it. Otherwise, just throw new internal server exception. Okay, because this error will be the instance of HTTP exception. Okay, a simple user create. So similarly, you can define a couple of more methods. Like, okay, I wanted to find user by property, like you wanted to search user. So I will just try to write a method, and you can just, I will explain. You wanted to search user by the first name, last name, email. Then simple query, right? Only the administrator user should be able to do it. Find one by email. This is the method which we will need later. You wanted to know, okay, this email really exists or not. We can just do email dot to lowercase, because we are saving email with the lowercase. Okay, then find one by user ID, and update also if we are supporting update. Find all user, that is like, okay, TypeORM dot user repository dot find, pass nothing, it will give you all the users. And if you want to update, right, if you want to update, like what all things you can update, can you update email, can you update password? So all those things we can just add. Okay, what are the new things which you want to add and update? For that we can write code. So that will be the CRUD operations: create, update, fetch, delete. Administrator user can also delete a user. So for that you just need to do a simple operation, right? So let's take a look onto the user module. Here we have added a user service, user controller. So user controller, user service, which we are also exporting, because auth module will need user service. So in that case, auth, because authentication, we will need a logic to find a user by email ID, find a user by user ID, and we will be talking user service. So in that case, the user in authentication module, we need to add a dependency of a user module, and we are adding user service inside exports, so that this user service can be used inside a auth module. Okay, let's see the authentication things in the next video. So now let's create auth module, auth controller, auth users. So here inside auth, we will start creating auth controller. I will just try to, we don't need entity, we need service. Yes, copy and paste them onto the auth folder and rename them, because here we will be writing a login, logout, auth DTO, auth module, auth service that will need user service. And here we can just create, because in authentication we will be using the guard and lots of things. Guards, strategy, strategies, and okay, I can create DTO folder as a separate. Guard, strategy, DTO. Okay, so we'll be having activation guard, auth guard, strategy, local strategy, passport strategy, access token strategy. All these strategies we can add here. Now auth controller, what do you think inside auth? We will just create a simple route which will take a username and password. We will just write a simple controller where you will pass a simple username and password, and we will validate, and we will return the cookies. Okay, and then all these logic of validating things will go inside auth service. Okay, and we'll be using the passport. Now let's try to take a look onto these passport strategies, auth guards. What are they really is, right? So for that we can go to the NestJS documentation. So how these things are connected. NestJS passport is a popular authentication library. It helps you to validate username, password. You just need to create a passport local. All these dependencies you need to add. Then after that you just need to, let's say I created a user service. I did auth service, which is just doing a validation of user. Here comes my passport local. So this local strategy, what it is doing, it invoked automatically when you register a passport with your NestJS module, and it validates the user because you are already passing the username and password in the request body. Here it uses the auth service. Auth service we will write that will use user service, username and password, and if everything is good, it will be able to push the user object, right? We can pass the option super, validate. What it is doing is auth service will do the validation. If the user is returned, passport can complete its task by creating user property in the request object. That's the important part of what passport does. So here we are writing a local strategy. What it is doing, it is validating username, password. We have not written this code in the controller. Validate user, username, password, and this user object automatically gets populated in the request object. If username password doesn't validate, it will throw unauthorized exception, and you will get the status code in the HTTP, right? So it's like a very simple integration. So let's try to see how we can integrate passport. Here then you just added a passport module, local strategy, auth service, user module. This comes your auth module, right? So I will just try to add this here. Auth module. We'll add these required things like user module dependencies we need. Auth service we'll be creating. Is it not user module? Okay, add import passport module I will add. This is the local strategy I will be creating inside a strategies folder. Auth service we will be creating here. I will just change this to auth service. Lots of code we need to write, but it will be quick. Nothing, it's plain and simple code we are writing. Now what auth service will be doing? I will write a one simple method there, and then we will discuss about it for how the passport is playing a role here. Auth service. I will replace the content. So here we are writing auth service. You can see it is importing user service, and then we are injecting config service, user service. I will explain you what is this line 21. When two services are dependent on each other, then you have to use forward ref so that you do not have the cyclic dependency. Okay, because user service also need auth service, auth module need user module, user module need auth module. So we are just checking email password. This is being called by the local strategy. Okay, local strategy will call the auth service, user service dot find by email, not found exception. We are comparing the password. If password match is found, we will create token and we'll update a refresh token. We are creating access token, populating the refresh token in the database, and then returning the data. Otherwise, user does not found. A simple validate method which we need. Now I will add a strategy, which is access token strategy. Now try to read this, what it is doing. Access token strategy will come into the picture automatically because we are registering a passport module. Here, this thing will be used when we are sending access token to the APIs back. Here, this access token strategy will play. And what it will do is, it will check. It will try to validate user, validate JWT payload, whatever. So first of all, this will be used when you are passing the authorization header. In the cookies, so here if we are going to get access token inside cookies, it will decode and it will just return us the data. Okay, because this whole thing will try to populate this payload inside a validate method. This access token JWT strategy will extract the access token, will validate that okay, token is valid. What is the token payload? Because we are using JSON web token where we need to use JWT.sign to create a token, JWT.verify and JWT.decode. All those things are happening with the help of this thing. This is actually passport, NestJS passport or passport JWT is doing. Inside payload, we will validate, okay, everything is good. Then we just return user, and this user will be available on the request user object. So this is our simple auth controller. What it is doing is, like the same code we are doing. Here we have added a login, and inside this, in the request body, you will be passing username, password. So instead of validating directly by controller, you can also use a passport local strategy that will extract the email and a password from the request object, validate the user, and provide the request.user object. But here we are doing it manually. First, we are validating the password. If everything is fine, we are getting the response object. And here this response object is giving us the two type of token. You can see refresh token, update refresh token, generate token, create token, right? This is the payload which we are adding inside a token. Here we are creating access token and refresh token with the two different secret key that we will get from the all config service. JWT service.sign async. This is the data I want to put inside a token with the secret key, and this is the expiry. So it will give me the access token and a refresh token. I can just save that inside the cookies. So this is how I will be sending the cookies to the client side. Response.cookies, I will send access token and I will send a refresh token, and response.send response. This is just a simple way of sending a data back. So once you do the login, we are sending cookies back to the client. Now these cookies will be sent back to the server, and how we will be decoding them using this strategy, access token JWT strategy. This token will be validated, and here we are just passing the same secret using which we have created a token. These are like very basic things, and if you have done a little bit of Node.js, you know how JSON web token works. You just need to pass an access token and secret, same secret key. It will validate and it will provide a payload. Then you can also again validate the payload. Okay, user still exists. If yes, return the user. So this strategy can be added to all the private routes which you wanted to protect. Okay, so this is like a simple setup of user controller, auth service, user service. I will be adding more code on top of this, but there is no point of explaining much because this is the whole summary, how all these things are connected. We have auth here also. We can write a local strategy if you want, like this local strategy instead of writing code, but I need to generate a token and lots of things I need to do. So this is the local strategy. This is auth service, and this validate user is being called by auth service. Yeah, local strategy. This is also you can create as a strategy. You don't need to validate the token. It will give you the user object, and based on that you can create a token and return the token inside a cookies response. Okay, let's update our code, and I will try to showcase at least the sign up and the login together. Okay, so let's see all these things in action. We have already created a user module and auth module, right? So I did a basic setup for this. We have all these things, auth controller. I just try to play with just a simple sign up and a login first, and then we will try to introduce more code. So here, this is our API v1 users. I will try to create a user first. Okay, so I will try to zoom a little bit. So let's do a demo. Password is demo, hash demo. Okay, let's create a user. So we are able to create a user. Password is an hash. I mean, this is the hash. We should not just send it right away. Now what happens? I already created a user. Now I will try to log in. Okay, so try it out. Demo @demo. So this is the username password. I will try to log in. And here you can see when I did this, I was able to get the access token and the refresh token, but we are talking about cookie based authentication. So what happens when I just open this curl request in the Postman, and I will try to see did we receive any cookies header or not. Okay, there we can verify it appropriately. So let's open Postman or any client. So this is our Postman client. I will try to send the request, same, and you can see I will check the headers. So here you can see this set cookies. There are two cookies it is sending, refresh token and access token. Now whenever I send a request back again to the server, these cookies will be set and will be sent back. Okay, these are the cookies which I received. You can see in the cookies also localhost, session, HTTP only true, secure false, because currently we are only doing development. But when we are doing production, then we should secure true, HTTP only true, and it should be for particular domain, not anybody else should be able to use. So this access token and refresh token we have received, so that we can also try and add refresh token mechanism. So now let's try to access our protected API. Now the next thing I'm going to do is access any protected API like API v1 users that will send these cookies automatically. You can say these headers have been added automatically and these will be sent with a request. Now when I send this, I'm getting, what is the result? Internal server error. That is true. I know the reason. And you can see it is not able to access token. So to enable, we are sending the cookies, but we need to enable the server so that server can read the cookies. So we need to add a middleware cookie parser and body parser. If you are from Express.js world, then these are the two middleware we used to add in the Express.js app to enable the application to extract the cookies from the request. So I will try to register that. app.use cookie parser. Cookie parser we can get from cookie parser. Cookie parser we need to add as a dependency, which is not there. So let's try to add a dependency of cookie parser. Cookie parser is really helpful module to extract the cookies from the request body. We need to go to package.json. Okay. First, let's install it. And then we will run the application again. Now I can just hit this URL. It is saying forbidden. That means it is able to read the cookies, but there is something else. Now what is that? I know the reason, because I enabled the auth guard, role guard. You can say it is same as the guard. So let's comment this out. For now, we have not assigned any role to this user, but what it is expecting that if this user role is system admin, then only he can access this get all user, because it's administrator functionality. I will hit this and I got all the users, right? So this is a basic authentication. Now how we are assigning the role and the permissions. So that can be like, we can bootstrap first admin user, and that admin user can assign a roles to the rest of the users. So we can check that in the local database, API database, like what all roles we are populating. So here, assign user permission, role guard. What role guard is checking? Role guard is checking the user.permissions. Do you have any kind of permissions? If that permission has a administration, so we already have this is the table. I will explain you the database table first. That will make more clear. So this is the permission. If you just add, let me check what is the permission entity. Okay, user entity, and permissions is JSONB. Permissions is a string. Okay. So I just need to add Markanis admin there. We'll go to the user controller, system admin. Let me try to add this permission there. And then I will do the logout and the login. Now we also need to check how we are creating the token. Okay. So we'll go to the auth service, login, right? So here you can see permissions. This is the information which we are storing inside the token, right? Once you log in, this token will be sent to the customer client, and then this token will come back, and then we decode the token using this JSON web token. So if you are sending the permissions, then only you should be able to get it. So let's start the application again and play with the postman. Here is our postman. We'll try to log in again. Okay, let me change this. Post. It will give us the new token. Even you can decode the token and see what it is inside this JSON web token. It's a JWT token, right? And here you go. I copied the same token, and this token has this permission string, which is system admin, because I manually assigned the role to this user. Right now I will try to log in with the same thing. I will open my postman. So this token is already set. API v1 users. I think this was the URL, and I can get it even when I have set the role. So here inside a user controller, we have enabled the system admin role. So you should be able to get all the users. Let's enable this thing. Yes, I got the data, right? Let's say I just change the role to system root. Can I get the user now? Because it is allowing only system root. I will get forbidden. So this is called role based authorization. You set a role for the user, and then that role we decode through the token, and then we are checking, and all these things can be done through these role guard. So what all additional things we are doing here? The token guard, role guard, we need to provide this metadata. I will talk about this, what I wrote here, this role allowed annotation. This is the custom decorator we have created to populate the roles attribute inside a metadata. So whatever the roles you have, that will be set inside a roles metadata, and that you can access inside a role guard. Do you have that permissions, and how we are accessing that permission? Using roles metadata. In role decorator, you have set something in the roles property using this controller, using this attribute. And inside this role guard, we are checking, do you have the system root set in your permissions or not? Not, then you are not allowed. So this is called as a simple authentication authorization. In the next video, I will just talk about the overall picture of the code, whatever we have written in this.